Hello, everyone. Welcome to In Pursuit of Balance. Today on the show, we have an American Swami. Not many people know this, but I actually was a monk myself. In South Africa, I grew up wanting to be a cricketer. Okay. I grew up playing on the streets, and I actually wasn't too bad. But because of the apartheid, okay, opportunities for people of color were very, very limited. Okay? And that made me very angry. It made me bitter inside. And that was the reason why I went to the ashram, because I needed to do something to change me. But when I got to the ashram, that first month was like nothing I could have ever expected. I wasn't prepared for it. No one told me that you got to wake up at 3:30 in the morning every single day. And then, most Hindu homes, if you have a Bhagavad Gita, it's wrapped in a red cloth and it's sitting somewhere, isn't it? So that's what I did. I wrapped my Bhagavad Gita in a red cloth and I carried it around the temple until a Swami came from abroad and said, "Son, do you plan on unwrapping that and reading it? Because if you're going to keep it wrapped, you should give it away as a present." And at 6 o'clock every single morning in the temple, I used to go for a run. Okay. And the temple president came to me one day and he said, "Why don't you teach the other devotees how to run as well?" So I said, "Sure, why not?" And I very, very excitedly set up a running club called the Jagannath Running Club. It's 15 years in existence, and I'm still the only member. Yeah. But a few years later, I found myself in India in 2007. Okay. And a short while after that, I met His Holiness Radhanath Maharaj. And I was completely overwhelmed by his aura of serenity and tranquility, his love and his compassion, his guidance, his patience. They all have played such an instrumental role in guiding and nurturing me. Today, please join me in welcoming the Swami, His Holiness Radhanath Maharaj. Thank you. Thank you so much. So much. Maharaj, thank you so much for gracing us with your presence on the show. It means a lot to me.
It is my honor. Thank you.
When I was doing some research in the early parts of your book, The Journey Home, you attended a Jimi Hendrix and Janis Joplin concerts. And I think that was amazing because I'm sure there's not a single person in this room who's ever attended that. What was life like then?
It was a time of questioning and transformation. Because teenage years, the tendency is to ask questions, to explore, to see inconsistencies. And in America at that time, we were taught that, the constitutional basis of the United States of America is all people are created equal, liberty and justice for all. Yet we saw before our eyes oppression, prejudice, suppression of minorities. And it was wide scale. In the North and the South, in the East and the West. There was a war in Vietnam. At that time, if you were 18 years old, it was likely you would be forced to fight. And it was a war we couldn't understand and we didn't believe in. And then I could see the principle of success that we were taught is to have money and fame. But those that had it, It seemed hollow without inner fulfillment. And then there was religion. And I saw hate in the name of a loving God. So all these things were contradictions that created a challenge. And this was going on in my generation. And these musicians that you're speaking about they were songs about rebellion. Rebellion against the status quo. Rebellion against the ideals that we felt were very superficial, very hollow, very unsustainable. But in that rebellion, it was called the counterculture. I came to a realization in my own life that we have to be the change we want to see in the world. That was Gandhi's words. And that rebellion of the counterculture was based on socialistic dissatisfaction and exploring deeper ways of enjoying material life. And I saw that it was going nowhere. You know, Jimi Hendrix died of a drug overdose, as did Janis Joplin, as did so many others. So, you know, these are the heroes. Where is this search leading us? And I believed at the core of my heart that the real solutions, both individually and collectively, were spiritual. So I began to study, to explore, and as far as possible to experience different spiritual paths to find that essence. And that's what took me on my journey.
When I was reading the book, The Journey Home, there was a stage when I was smiling because you planned to go on a summer holiday and never came back. And the current parents, if their child is 30 minutes late, they're probably in trouble, you know? So...
My parents were like that too.
Were like that? What was it like? What did they say? How did they react to the fact that you just never came?
I was supposed to come back after 2.5 months from Europe.
Yeah.
And after 6 months, they got a letter from Iran.
Yes.
And I said, they knew I had no money.
Yeah.
And I went with a friend, and I wrote that my friend is no longer with me, and I'm hitchhiking to India because I wanted to explore the different spiritual paths and cultures and understand the values of different people in different parts of the world, because I felt culturally isolated where I was growing up, and I really wanted to see how other people understand America, understand what's truly valuable in life, and how other people understand God and the purpose of life. So I was searching like that, going to forests and museums and synagogues and cathedrals and churches and monasteries in Europe and in the Middle East. I was studying Islam, and I was learning under some scholars there. And as I was hitchhiking through Turkey, Iran, Afghanistan, and then went through Pakistan, and ultimately, after 6 months of hitchhiking, I arrived at the border of India. And I was so eager to come to India because when I was in Greece meditating and praying for direction, I heard a voice within me, a silent voice that was the most powerful experience of my life. And what I heard is go to India, because I was praying for direction. So somehow I believed in that voice, and I started hitchhiking to India. And when I finally arrived, I had already underwent so many difficulties and diseases.
Yes.
And I was at the border so eager
To get in.
to enter into India. And the immigration agent asked the one question that I dreaded. How much money did you have? And I had, I think, 26 cents in 5 currencies. And I was rejected. And finally, the guard changed, and the new guard, I cried. I said, please give me a chance. I promise you someday I'll try to do something that will be good for the people of India if you just give me a chance. He stared in my eyes for about a minute, because immigration agents, they interrogate. He was interrogating through a stare. And then he said, my commanding officer, the previous agent, has ordered me to reject you. But sometimes a man must follow his heart. And I'm going to give you the chance you're crying for.
Wow.
And he took my passport and stamped it. Then he put his hand on my head. He was in his late 50s. I was 19. And he said, he blessed, may you find what you are yearning for. Welcome to India.
Welcome.
And back to my parents. They got a letter from Afghanistan. There was never a return address because I never had a home. And then later, they got a letter, an aerogram. And I said, I'm living in a cave in the Himalayan jungles. And my neighbors are the leopards and the snakes. And I said, there's a butterfly, and I'm hearing the sacred syllable Om from the wings of the butterfly. And I thought they would think I'm cool. But I didn't calculate properly. They felt totally helpless. They went to the Counselor General of India and showed him my letter and said, you have to find my son. And he said, if he's in the Himalayan caves, no one can find him. So when I finally did come back after a couple of years, I was a hardcore seasoned sadhu. With sadhu robes, and then I had matted hair. They didn't know what to do. But I loved and accepted them for who they were, and I understood how they can't really understand me, but I was trying to understand them. And I was trying, gradually, our communication was becoming deeper because it was based on not what they expected me to be or what I expected them to be, but we're family, and there must be that affection and respect for one another. And in not much time, we had the closest relationship ever, and they were so proud.
I'm sure. So when you go back now, Maharaj, is the relationship like a Swami? They respect like a Swami? Or is it still the father-son relationship, like how a traditional father-son relationship? What happens? What is it like when you go back home?
When there's people around, I'm the Swami. When we're all alone, I'm just their little son.
I was always curious about that, about what it's like when you go back
Because
home.
they understand the etiquette.
I'm sure. So, Marj, you said something really amazing in the sense that you heard a voice. Okay? For the average person, we use the term intuition. We say it's your subconscious mind. We say it's a higher energy. How can the average person distinguish between whether that voice is actually just their conscious thought talking to them, or it is actually a voice from a higher energy that's trying to guide them?
Initially, I trusted that voice because I was only praying to love God. And I was only praying to see all beings with equal vision and be an instrument of compassion. I wasn't praying for anything selfish. I very much hated sectarianism and arrogance in the name of spirituality, so I was looking for something beyond that. So because I was praying for something that I believed was very sacred and pure, even, I was not pure, but I was praying for that pure thing. The voice, I had faith that, yes, this is going to take me there.
When you were traveling and you were experiencing this, and you say you were praying and that voice was talking to you, Raj, who were you praying to?
I was praying to God. I didn't know, I had a hazy idea of what God was, who God was, what God's nature was, but somehow there was an intuitive tendency in my heart that I believed that there was this supreme truth that was behind everything. And I could feel the presence of that supreme truth, that supreme being, through my prayers and in every spiritual path I was experimenting with. And when ultimately I came to Vrindavan, and the beauty and the sweetness that's revealed in the supreme truth is Krishna, just completely captured and attracted my heart. And then when I met my guru, Srila Prabhupada, his compassion and his capacity to explain the deepest subjects in very simple, understandable ways, it awakened profound faith. And I just wanted to assist him.
Before you'd met Srila Prabhupada, you'd met Maharishi, Anandamaya, Swami Chidananda, you'd met Kailash Baba, you'd met numerous people, and they all offered you a form of initiation. They all wanted to make you a disciple, but you rejected everyone. What was it that you were looking for in a guru?
I never thought that I rejected anyone.
Okay.
All these people, they showed great love and affection for me, and I really had love and affection for all of them. But this calling, and I didn't even understand it. I was even questioning myself, why do I keep moving on to explore for something else? All I could say is, that's just the way God or Krishna that was guiding me. And it wasn't until I reached Vrindavan that I just felt completely at peace that this is my home, this is my path.
Do you think it's important for everyone to have a guru?
It depends what we're looking for. But if you need heart surgery, you need a proper doctor who has the proper credentials of experience, read the right books, has the right teachers. So spiritual life is actually a more serious thing than an open heart surgery because it's dealing with enlightening our soul. So tadvidi pranipatena, the Gita tells, try to understand the truth by approaching a self-realized soul who knows the truth.
So, Maharaj, if someone is looking for a guru, if they decide that this is the path that I would like to walk to enhance my spiritual core, what are the characteristics or qualities that someone looks for in a guru?
there's three principles in the Vedic tradition, which really are consistent with all the great spiritual traditions of the world. Guru, Sadhu, Shastra. That when these three things are in line, then we can understand that the truth is present. The Holy Scriptures. But Holy Scriptures can be interpreted in so many ways. Yes. So the Scriptures, and Evam Parampara Praptam, the Bhagavad Gita tells, that the Scripture should be understood through lineage, disciplic succession, of timeless transmission of knowledge from one teacher to the next teacher to the next teacher. And then the present guru is not just giving opinions, but the guru is representing the essence of the scriptures, which are consistent with the great saints that have not only taught, but lived those principles. Living without arrogance, living without selfishness, who are actually experiencing the deepest inner peace, love, and compassion. And Mahatma means broad-minded. Doesn't mean a sectarian person. Somebody who's really saragrahi, who's seeking the essence, finding the essence, and revealing the essence.
Can a guru disappoint a disciple?
Originally, God or Krishna is Jagat Guru. He's the supreme guru. And like an electrical powerhouse, it's the source of all electricity. And an outlet is a way to connect to that electrical powerhouse. But if you just plug something into any hole in the wall, you're not going to get electricity. That's where disciplic line and the realization in the life of the person is what gives that connection. When a person is speaking consistent with what the scriptures are saying and is living by those principles. When a person is like that, they can actually connect us to the divine current of grace. And we could be disappointed. Sometimes we're disappointed because of our own egos or our own minds or our own unrealistic expectations. But there are times when gurus also go astray. People who are taking that role. That means they're no longer, connecting us to that divine current of grace. And but we should know that that current is always there, and the outlets are always there, and that's where community of devotees or satsang is so important, because it keeps us centered on the truth. It keeps us centered on being connected to the current of grace.